I'll wait a few seconds until the YouTube stream starts.
There's a bit of a lag usually, or
yeah, it's usually a few seconds.
Wonder how many people are live watching me eat Vegemite toast.
Here we go. Okay, I think we are live. Welcome, everyone.
Ooh. Ooh. Hey, Harry, or Big Papa, as I like to call you.
Hey, Ali.
Live on stream with you, Harry.
Yeah, you too. And hi, Dawn. How's it going?
Hello, I'm doing great, doing great.
Ali, what are you eating there?
I'm excited to be here, and I've called this segment Vegemite on Toast with a side of pancakes, since we're both Australian. I'm trying out the Vegemite. I love it. It is true that Australia, although I hear you don't like it, Harry.
No, I'm not a fan of Vegemite, so I'm...
So un-Australian, so un-Australian.
I know. It's
you know, if we can still be friends, Harry. You do like decentralized web, though. So, you know, maybe that'll get some of the pain I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I'm more of just a coffee person for breakfast, but
fair enough.
Awesome that you're having Vegemite live on a Hackathon live stream.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to like a Marmite, if you know it in the UK, but better, obviously. Or it's a bit like soy sauce. It's very salty for those of you that may not have come across it, except in paste format. Anyway, what are we here for, Harry? We're here to talk about the Filecoin and Chainlink Hackathon, which is going on at the moment. I've seen some cool threads happening in the Discord about this as well. I'm sure there's some awesome projects being made.
Yes, definitely. So first, maybe we can introduce ourselves. So yeah, I'm Haire Papacharissiou. I manage the developer advocates at Chainlink Labs.
I'm Ali. I'm a developer advocate here in the Filecoin and IPFS ecosystem. I've been around for a while now. I just got back to Australia after being overseas for a good 6 months. So if I saw you at any of those events that have been happening this year, shout out to you guys, or online as well. But yeah, I'm Ali. Good to meet you if I haven't come across you before. And Dawn is on mute, or we can't hear her.
Oh, why did I do that? Okay, sorry. I'm Dawn Kelly, developer advocate in the IPFS Filecoin universe as well. Newer kid than Ali, but been around, seen some things now. And yeah, happy to be here.
Nice one. You can be the honorary Aussie as part of this live stream.
Oh, I already am. Ask Ali.
I'm teaching her all the lingo. So,
yes,
not just today, but how to shorten everything. We're doing stuff for Savo. Yeah.
Yes.
all the swear word lingo as well.
Oh, well, I can't say that on air.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I guess the first thing I wanted to bring up as part of this live stream for the Chainlink for 2022 Hackathon is actually Filecoin and Chainlink are kind of similar. They're kind of quite similar in a certain way, and that is that they're both a Web3 service, basically, that blockchains can use. So they're not their own chain right now. So they're a service that blockchains can use so that developers can do some of the things that blockchains can't do natively, right? So blockchains are these amazing new pieces of tech that have these amazing unique properties. They have censorship resistance, guaranteed transactions, high levels of security, immutability, etc. But there's certain things that they're not good at to get those specific features, right? So some of the things like, they can't do API calls. They're not very efficient at storing data because it's quite expensive and it's so decentralized. So that's where kind of some of these services such as Filecoin and Chainlink come in. And what they do is they offer developers a really cool way to get some of these features that Web2 and traditional tech apps have readily available, but they give them in a way that when you build your application, you don't sacrifice on some of these unique properties that blockchains have. So you can still have your high levels of censorship resistance, immutability, and guaranteed transactions kind of being put through, and all of those unique properties, but they do it in a way where you don't sacrifice on them, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's cool because they really do match the values that we're aiming and the mission that we're aiming for here in decentralized web, which is, all about all those great properties that you mentioned. I will just clear up a little bit. So Filecoin is actually a blockchain.
Sorry.
All good. Filecoin is actually a blockchain, but our focus is on decentralized storage solutions. So we are aiming. So at the moment, it's not a layer 1, but we are building a project called the Filecoin Virtual Machine, which will turn it into more of a layer 1. So you will be able to interact with it the same way that you do with smart contracts on the Ethereum network. And it's actually EVM compatible, so you'll be able to do that. But at the moment, Filecoin is quite tricky, as you mentioned, to interact with on the base level. Which is why we have a whole heap of storage helpers and tooling available to help people interact with Filecoin. Because building out kind of a decentralized version of storage is actually a really tricky proposition. And you come across things like, well, what do I do with things I want in databases? Which basically you're trying to create mutable data, but make it immutable. So there's all sorts of kind of tricky I guess, knowledge filters where we're trying to decide, well, which way to go, or do we go along 2 different paths and create different solutions based on your kind of engineering use case. So just to clear up that, but IPFS is not a blockchain, which may be what you were thinking of there, Harry. IPFS is just a protocol. It works much like kind of the HTTP protocol, but instead of being location addressed like HTTP is, like you type in a URL and it goes to that address, IPFS instead is content addressed. So you ask for a piece of hashed content and it gives you that content from many different places. It's actually really, like, when I first came across it, I'm like, wow, that is like a really elegant solution to decentralization, because you're addressing things by content instead of location. That means you can get them from anywhere across wherever you're trying to get them from. So just clearing up, but on the mission, you're absolutely right, Harry. Like, we're trying to build these modular infrastructure components that other people can build like their cool computing applications off. And that's the main point, I think, there. So
yep. Makes sense. And it's funny that as well, we're seeing more and more use cases come up now that require some of these kind of services that blockchains can't provide. I remember back in the day, in like 2019 era, it was all about the private blockchain and track and trace things on chain, and there was no notion of like needing external data or external storage or things like that. But now we're seeing a whole bunch of use cases around gaming, DeFi, NFTs, massive use case for off-chain storage and things like that. And we're seeing more and more use cases come up where developers need these kind of these off-chain services so that they can create some of these apps that have features that rival the traditional Web 2 apps of today.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think a big example that I've seen build out of IPFS and Filecoin is live peer, like streaming live video. That is a massive amount of data, and we can't really do that on a blockchain. We're not going to be able to just save that to the Ethereum network. I can't imagine how rich you'd have to be able to do that.
That would be very expensive.
Yeah, so I was actually just at IPFS camp in Lisbon, and shout out to anyone that was in Lisbon recently for Web Summit or any of the number of events that were happening. But we held IPFS camp, and Live Peer was talking on a few different tracks about some of the new and exciting things they're doing with these kind of protocols. So that's just like off the top of my head, one of the really cool use cases that it's impossible to be on chain, really.
Yeah,
but we still want to keep the value. So yeah, 100%.
Cool. Okay, so do you want to just talk for a couple minutes next? Both of you maybe can chat about just what is the vision for Filecoin? What is the vision?
Yeah. Do you want to have a crack at that, Dawn, or do you want me to take it? Up to you.
I'm going to let you take that. I'm prepared to talk about bounties, Ali, when we're ready. Yes, that's what I've got in my brain.
That is the important part as well.
Yes.
So the overall vision for the Filecoin ecosystem is to build this decentralized cloud. We want to give users control over their own data. We want to make sure that we're building in resiliency from the start, because that's one thing. I think I come from a cloud background, and I think if anyone here has worked with cloud like AWS or Google or anything else, one of the big challenges you get to after a certain point is resilience of that data. And then you start if you're a client, not on the cloud side, but if you're a client, what you want is resilience and redundancy of your data. And one way to do that is with decentralized services. So Filecoin, that's one mission for Filecoin, is aiming to try and kind of compete with this cloud model that we've set up, and we're seeing more and more. I actually I'm an ex-IBMer, so their big play at the moment is all about hybrid cloud. So they're using Red Hat services in order for you to be able to deploy your data or workloads to multiple different clouds and be able to get them back. Now, I mean, this seems like a really massive overhead, both financially and time-wise and maintenance-wise, when you can have a decentralized cloud and choose to store that data anywhere. And the other side of this is we're aiming to really make data open for people as well. So there's a project called the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web, which is a charity, so formally registered as a charity in the US. But we lend our Filecoin staff lends their time to building this out, and it's all about educating as well as preserving the world's most important data. And they've done some incredible things. I encourage you to look it up. But one of the ones they recently announced was working with the Harvard Innovation Library Project to democratize open knowledge. So preserving this digital data for the next, however long we need to preserve it for, and having that be open to other one. And another use case around that is government data as well. This is public. This is a lot of the public government data should be public to us. And unfortunately, given the way our society is set up, this sometimes means that when we have a new governor or a new workforce put in, or the sides change, this means that someone can turn that data off or not think it's valuable anymore. And I think this is public knowledge. This should be kept in a public repository. Shout out to Dev Steve, who is one of my old co-workers, for joining in this. I just saw him come up on the comments there. Shout out to Dev Steve, one of my mentors. Anyway, so those are some of the real valuable missions of Filecoin. We do want to create an alternative to this privatized cloud model that is really kind of dangerous in terms of security as well. And secondly, we want to make sure that we're preserving public information and public knowledge and public data for futures to come. We've also got another project called, I'm just going to keep going, sorry. We've also got another project called Filecoin Green, which is really aiming to transform some of the problems we're seeing with those carbon credits. People are buying them 3 or 4 times. So they're really trying to change the game there, as well as make our whole chain completely running off green energy. So they're doing an amazing job. Check that project out too. I'll stop there.
Awesome.
It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, very great words, very much needed in terms of the mission you were talking about.
Yeah, knowledge is power, exactly. We need to make sure that, that's open to everyone as well, which was the original intent of the internet as well. So really making a decentralized web is such a valuable mission here. And especially
100%.
some of the news we're hearing at the moment.
Yeah. Just quickly before we continue, hi developer Steve. So when I first joined DevRel, I found both of you somehow online, and I'm like, I didn't know what DevRel was, and then I saw some of the stuff yourself and Steve were doing, and I'm like, oh wow, this is really cool. So
that's so cool.
Shout out to both of you.
That. Yeah, I would love to do a meetup with you live someday too, Harry. It's still on my agenda. Haven't forgotten about it.
We'll do it somewhere.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. All right. So next, maybe I'll just talk a bit about the mission for Chainlink as kind of like a other side. So in a very similar manner, we are trying to empower developers to be able to build advanced smart contract applications. So like I said before, blockchains are amazing. Layer 1s are amazing. They can do certain things, but there are other things that they can't do. So we believe that blockchains and smart contracts and all of these Web3 technologies are very unique, and they have the ability to replace the majority of digital agreements we have today, so that they're better, more secure, better for us, the end person, the citizen, the user, the consumer, etc. But to do that, we need to make them, smart contracts, better, smarter, more flexible, have the ability to do more things. So that's where we provide some of these services to access off-chain data, services for randomness, because randomness is like a very common use case in applications that you can't actually do on a blockchain, services for off-chain compute, and then a whole bunch of other upcoming services such as MEV protection, cross-chain messaging, and things like that. So we basically want to say, hey, we think smart contracts are awesome. We think they're going to change the world, but they're not quite there yet. We're going to build a bunch of cool stuff so that developers can use that together with blockchains to make the applications that will change the world tomorrow. So that's probably how I'd sum up the Chainlink mission from a developer point of view in like a couple of sentences.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's that we're going back to that interoperability piece too. We can't live in a bubble. We do want to access data from the outside world, and Chainlink helps do that, as well as making sure that that's trustless, right? I mean, as an Oracle network and more. And I see you've got CCIP coming out as well, which sounds like a really cool project too.
Yes. So we think that blockchains should be able to talk to each other in a very safe and easy manner, and exchange information, exchange messages, exchange tokens. But a lot of the bridges and cross-chain messaging we've seen so far has been
What with danger.
yeah, like most of the hacks have been on bridges this year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we need something that's like very secure, security first, and done in a way so that everyone can just use it because they know that it's going to work and that it's secure, and it's just the thing that everyone uses. So that's kind of what we're working towards for that. But yeah, we believe that definitely the future is cross-chain, 100%. We have a question in the chat here again. What is the name of the carbon credits project that you mentioned earlier?
So have a look at Filecoin Green, that project. They're doing a lot of cool work in that space. So thanks for the question too, Esteban. Filecoin Green, it's called.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the hackathon next. So obviously we're currently in the middle of the Chainlink Fall 2022 hackathon. I think there's a couple of weeks left for submissions. Dawn, did you want to talk a little bit next about some of the bounties?
Oh, yeah. So for Filecoin, for this hack, we put out some overall prizes and some bonus prizes for this fall hackathon. For our overall prizes, we're looking at our storage wizard, which the challenge statement for that one is the best use of NFT.storage or Web3.storage to use IPFS for content addressing and Filecoin for persistent decentralized storage. We have some other tools that'll also qualify for that, so you can always check with us on individual cases.
And sorry to interrupt, Dawn, but just breaking that sentence down a bit. So Web3.storage and NFT.storage are both built on top of IPFS and Filecoin. So the second part of that sentence really is a given if you use either of those tools, right?
Yeah, and this the notes I have in front of me for this come right after my what is Filecoin in my normal presentation. So it's okay. But we have, let's see, first place is $10,000. $10,000. Second place is $7,500, and third place is $5,000 on that. And then we also had we did some different individual tracks, so you can submit individually for things like NFTs, gaming, and Web 2 to Web 3 conversions and things like that. Trying to find the slide. Yeah.
There's lots of good stuff happening in the gaming verse as well. I think, like you were mentioning, Harry, like interacting with your VRF for randomness in gaming, and then saving some things from a game to IPFS and Filecoin, or creating a chat function in game between players on IPFS. That's not an easy task. So if you've only got 10 days left and you're starting that now, probably don't. But those sort of things are where I think we're going in this space as well. Like definitely Filecoin and Chainlink, I think, have so many combined uses. So it's really, we always love doing hackathons with Chainlink because of that. Like, it's so easy to put them together and to make some really cool stuff. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And you guys are just so awesome to work with too. We've worked on a number of hackathons together, and we always collaborate with each other, and it's just really awesome. And yeah, like you said, it's a no-brainer to combine some of our services with your services too.
Yeah, and then you can deploy wherever you like as well. Like you've got so much scope to do things around that. We are really looking for things that, I was mentioning our mission before on multiple different fronts there, and we are really looking for projects that are looking to push the boundaries a bit and to, go down this path of, well, how do we solve something like X crisis today, or Patreon, like, or Twitter, or any of these others that are really, centralized services controlling how we interact and how we do things. And not even that. I think, I was reading a few comments on crypto. I don't know if I should bring this up, but reading a few comments on crypto Twitter today, about the whole FTX but disaster. I think it can only be described as. And
Yeah.
how do we help make things like accountability on sexes? Because I would say CEXs, sexes, I don't know. How do we make accountability and make this more transparent so a user knows what they're getting into, or at least someone that has the knowledge can see what people are getting into? Because we do want to onboard the next billion users, and we can't do that if everyone thinks that the next thing is going to be a Ponzi scheme. And I think these were a great 2.5 mission, and unfortunately, like, there's been a lot of big problems, and without regulation, how do we change that? So I don't know, that's a big brain question, but I'd love to see some thought around some of those things as well.
I want to see tools for us to regulate ourselves before somebody does it for us, Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very important thing. And one of the biggest selling points of blockchain, which I think is good if we can kind of translate to some of these other scenarios, is the ability to guarantee an outcome based on, maths and cryptography, where you're not trusting in someone saying something, in saying that they have some assets, or that they're going to pay you out your insurance contract, or that they're going to, allow you access to something. You're relying on maths and cryptography, because if you hold the private key to sign a transaction from your wallet, from your account to the smart contract, or to whatever you're interacting with, 100% that it's going to work, as long as you have power internet, which everyone needs for any kind of system. That there's not going to be someone or some company that says, oh, actually I don't have your assets, or actually I'm not going to let you access my trading application or anything,
or
like
your
that.
data. So, either way, assets,
or your data,
same thing. We're looking at the same kind of, how do we solve these problems, and that's exactly what we're here to do. Have to have a right. Exactly.
Have to have a right to have your data, 100%. Cool. So what kind of tooling can you use with Filecoin as a developer?
Yeah, so we did mention that, like, building on the Filecoin layer itself, we definitely encourage you to do that if you're more of an advanced dev and you want to have a go at that. But it can be quite tricky because it's quite a complex ecosystem. We're trying to create a new cloud, which means we need to have markets, which means we have all these storage providers, which means our protocol can be quite complex. But we have a bunch of tools that you can use, and Dawn mentioned two of them, which is NFT.storage and Web3.storage, which are really awesome tools and work on top of IPFS and Filecoin, and are as simple as, like, downloading an NPM package. I don't know why I say NPM package, because the P in NPM is package, but a node package into your front or back end and using them like that. And there's a lot of examples around that you could use for that. You could also just use IPFS by itself. That's totally fine as well. So there's a few different implementations of IPFS. There's IPFS JS. The main one is Kubo, which is in Golang. And there's, like, also a lot of tools around for IPFS usage, which, like, things like Pinata. And can you think of what else am I missing here, Dawn?
I was going to mention IPFS JS, because I think it's just really cool that it's, if you know JavaScript, you can use it. It's there for you to go. Yeah. I think too, it's worth mentioning the Web3 storage, the couple of new features there with the components, the UI components that they've added. Those are super cool.
Web3 up, W3 up.
Yeah. And either NFT storage or Web3 storage, whichever is more appropriate for your project, are dead easy to use. If I could figure it out, anybody can.
There's some of the main ones. There's also some bigger ones, estuary.tech, but they're really looking at onboarding valuable data at the moment. So you do need to have a an invite for using that one. But if you do have a valuable use case, please let us know. I think also in other parts of our ecosystem, we're doing things, I know you mentioned before, Harry, we're doing things like compute over data as well, and leading into AI and ML applications. And a good project to look at for, it's really amazing, actually. A good project to look at for that is the COD project, nicknamed Bacalhau, which is the Portuguese for cod, COD, get it? But not as easy to spell, but a really great project. And they're starting to do, give more APIs and tooling out to developers. If you're interested in like the uses of AI and blockchain, Bacalhau is a really cool one to have a look at there as well. Super cool team as well. They're just starting to do some more work, and hopefully we'll have further bounties on there, but we would not say no to you using it already if you're interested in that.
Awesome. Maybe one of you can share a link in the chat for that. We have a question about the incentive layer and how it can be used as a notary system of trusted verifications.
How our incentive layer work. I'm not entirely sure what you're asking with this one. It could be perhaps you're looking at.
Is it the incentive layer for nodes to hold data?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're asking on that, but I will explain how Filecoin's consensus system works, because maybe there's a bit of a difference between where maybe your background is and where you're coming from and how Filecoin works. So Filecoin, when you upload something to the Filecoin ecosystem to be stored to, we have like over 4,000 storage providers worldwide, so miners in other ecosystem, but we call them storage providers because that's exactly what they're doing. But when you do upload data, that data is sealed with our first consensus. So they prove they have the data, they seal it. And then after that, every storage provider has to give a proof of space-time consensus, which basically is a proof showing that they're still holding that data. And that happens every 24 hours and is visible publicly. So you can look on chain to find that proof. And all of our storage providers have to actually stake Filecoin. So, and it's a non-trivial amount of Filecoin. So they have to stake Filecoin to be a storage provider, and then that is slashed if they don't keep your data around. But mostly if you're uploading data, you're not just going to upload it to one place. That would be silly. The same as you wouldn't just have one server for all your important data on AWS or otherwise. So you would upload it to a few to make sure that you're engineering for resiliency as well. But maybe that helps explain some of, why this might not be you just pay once and then, it's stored forever maybe. But we have markets as well. So you can decide how long you want to store that data for. You can automatically renew that data, but the markets help keep the pricing low, very low, like much lower than you would pay for another cloud storage service. And you can have a look at our crypto econ for that as well. And a lot of our tooling is also free, so that's also useful at the moment.
Nice. We've got just a few minutes left. Any other use cases or cool use cases that you can think of where you combine Filecoin and Chainlink that you'd like to mention?
That's super interesting because I think last hackathon I did a video on this with Patrick Collins, and we went through quite a lot of different use cases where you could use Filecoin and Chainlink together. And perhaps you can dig that out of the archives and have a look through that if you're interested in seeing some of that. But I think like I mentioned, gaming is one. I think DeFi could be another. I think, personal management systems, maybe social networks. I think, there's a clear use case for oracles and IPFS, which is off-chain, because you don't always want to have everything you do and say on a social network stored forever, maybe. So there could be a clear use around those kind of things as well. I don't know, Harry, do you have ideas too?
Yeah, I just quickly, I pasted a link to the talk in the chat.
You're too good.
So I urge anyone to take a look at that for some more ideas. But generally, I think we touched on it earlier. I really like the idea of combining randomness with off-chain storage for gaming. I'm a really big gamer, or I was anyway. Now I don't have as much time anymore.
kids.
But I like the idea of that, and using Filecoin for storage, and then using Chainlink VRF for the randomness for the game. So I'm very big on any projects that kind of delve into that space.
Yeah, for sure. And multiverse and NFT projects as well. We should probably most people know by now that if your NFT isn't on chain, then it should be using IPFS for the metadata, because otherwise it's open to being changed and rug pulled, literally rug pulled.
That's right.
There's been projects like that around. So that's doing cool things with NFTs, doing cool things with DAO tooling. I think I would love to see more easier DAO tooling to help people set up like really robust DAOs as well. That also could be interesting. There's so many different ways you could go here.
Yeah, definitely. We're pretty much at time now. Just quickly, where can developers go to keep up to date with the latest happenings on Filecoin IPFS?
Just tweet at us. No, just kidding. So Filecoin has a newsletter. If you go to filecoin.io, you can go down to the bottom footer and see where all our socials links are. We do, unlike probably most of the crypto industry, use Slack as our main forum. So feel free to join our public Filecoin Slack. There's also an IPFS forum, which I believe is ipfs.tech.com. Look up IPFS forum. I'm sure the Google results will come up in that as well, if you do need more help around the specific IPFS side. But otherwise, if you do have any questions, feel free to message us on Twitter or on the Filecoin Slack.
Harry, real quick, for your hackers as they're getting ready to submit their projects, folks, your repo needs to be public. If I can't see your code, I will never give you a prize. Never, ever.
Makes me very sad too.
Yes, it does make me sad actually, because I'll see a really cool demo and then there's no code and then I can't give money away, and I like to. So yeah, public repos, please, please.
And preferably highlighting where you use the technologies.
Yes.
We get a lot of entries, 200 or so entries, and we're trying to mark these in a really small amount of time. So if you can make it clear what your project is, where you've used our technology, and have public links, you're already ahead of the game. We're not frustrated, so we're already happier.
Yes, definitely have everything public and triple check that it's public beforehand. Cool. All right, I think we're pretty much at time now. I'd just like to say thank you to both of you for joining. So I think we dubbed this session the Vegemite and Protocols on Toast, but next time, Ali, if we have a live stream later in the day in Australia, I'm going to go to Bunnings and get like a Bunnings snag, and I'll eat that on camera.
Yes.
I don't know what that is, but I can't wait.
Bunnings snag and a beer. It's sausage on bread, basically. It's with tomato sauce. It's very Australian.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I can't wait to see some of the projects that get built as part of the Chainlink Fall 2022 Hackathon using Filecoin, using Chainlink. And yeah, if you're a developer and you're finalizing your project, or if you're still building it and you need help, feel free to reach out to either of us, and we'd love to help you out. And we just can't wait to see everything being built.
Thank you. Lovely chatting with you too, Haza.
You too. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, all. Bye-bye.